Hi, welcome to Building Wealth and Mental Health. My name is Randall Avery. Today we have a special guest, Raequael Anderson. In our conversation, we go through her career progression. We explain how she intended to serve one population, but decided to pivot and serve another population. She goes into detail how she consistently created a village around her to help support her in her professional and personal life. Raequael provides a first-hand account in what it means to spend the first year of college at a HBCU and then pivoting to a traditional college at Texas Tech. Then she provides her perspective on the importance of student loans, but also how she sees student loans now that she has to repay them. She then goes to how she realized that she had to get her master's to really earn the money that she wanted to make. And lastly, she provides her perspective of what it means to be a manager and to have responsibilities for others' performance. I hope you enjoy my conversation with Raequael Anderson. How you guys doing today? My name is Randall Avery, owner of Deasil Advisors, a wealth management firm serving clients in the Atlanta metro area and across the United States. Today, we have a special guest. Her name is Raequael Anderson. She is a counselor in the Texas area, and she's going to give us her journey, some of the struggles that she went through, and what she's learned. So, Raequael, can you please tell me a little bit about yourself and the firm that you work for?
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. My name is Raequael Anderson. I function as a board certified behavior analyst and licensed professional counselor, which in short just means I provide behavioral and therapeutic services for a large hospital in the Dallas area.
Very good, very good. So we're going to learn a lot of things, how things operate in the Dallas, Texas area, how to be licensed. So this is going to be an exciting conversation. So how would you describe your patient load and the type of work that you do?
Yes, so my primary population are children and adolescents diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder primarily, but along with other developmental delays. And that includes direct therapy support for the patient, but also there is a family and parent training component to my services. But that is my niche, so I really don't deviate outside of that population.
And how did you decide on that population? Was it that somebody counseled you, or you just kind of fell into that world?
I fell into it. I think what's so funny in the story I like to tell is that I had no desire to work with children early on in my journey, or so I thought. And I had a job while I was a graduate student at a very small nonprofit organization that provided services to kids with autism. And I absolutely loved it. And it changed the entire trajectory of my career.
Wow. So let's start from the beginning. Just so you can be relatable, so the audience can know a little bit about you. Explain yourself. Who is Raequael before she went into high school? Kind of describe your upbringing, something that the audience members can connect to.
Yes. And, just in my field, I think it helps sometimes to be completely transparent. So in a moment of vulnerability, I would describe my childhood and upbringing pretty traumatic. I had some of my own personal experiences that led me into wanting to be in a field that served other people. And so, that kind of goes without, giving details, but my life did start to change, I think, in high school. I was able to kind of create some great networks and what I like to call now is like my different villages that really helped push me to my next level. And so it definitely was a huge part of what I do today and even how I provide my services today.
Very good, very good. Now, in your high school years, did you have any exposure to the mental health world? Did somebody say, hey, this was a profession you could pursue, or this is something that exists in the world? Did you even know this world existed?
I did not. I actually changed my mind a few times in high school. I originally thought I was going to be an attorney. That was kind of, my goal for a long time. And I think towards the end, maybe my senior year of high school, it was kind of one of those things where I just decided I was going to throw myself into, whatever kind of happened when I got to college, since the first couple years are just kind of prerequisites. So there was actually like not exposure to the mental health field in the high school part of my life. It just kind of happened. That also just happened. I think you kind of have in your head what you're going to do. You have all of these plans, and then life tells you something different, and that's what happened.
Awesome. So let's talk about what you did to prepare for college. So you didn't know you were going to go in the mental health world, but you knew you were going to go to college. What are some of the preps things that you did? Did you take some pre-SAT exams? Were you thinking about GPA? What did you think about what qualified you to go to college?
I definitely think that, utilizing school counselors was really important in my journey. I encourage everyone to do that. That's kind of where I got my guidance in terms of picking a school and what to pay attention to, what experiences to have. And so my high school school counselor definitely was vital in helping me to, pay more attention to applying to actually several colleges, even though I thought I had my mind made up. Really paying attention to my testing scores. And so I was able to take some prep courses for the ACT and SAT. And I just kind of threw myself into it. I felt at that time a little late in the game. I didn't really start my journey until the end of my junior year, start of my senior year, which I think for some people they started freshman year, sophomore year. So I do wish I had started, a little earlier, but I think it worked itself out, just having access to someone that could point you in the right direction.
Gotcha. Very good. So you did the preparation work, you applied to different colleges. How did you decide which college was right for you? Even though you didn't know exactly what you're going to do, or you had a couple ideas, what said to you that was the college I wanted to go to?
This is funny. I think it's kind of like the maturity at that age. When I started to share my, college of choice and the response that I received, like, oh, wow, that school, that's amazing. It kind of like solidified the decision for me. So I had at some point decided that I wanted to apply to Howard University in DC, and I received lots of positive feedback. And then the research that I had done, it was just one of those like dream colleges, I guess you could say at that time. And so that's actually what kind of pushed me further, with the response that I got from my peers and educators and people in the community. So I felt like that was affirming. That was a good decision.
Gotcha. Okay. So did you stay, did you decide to go to Howard University, and did you stay there for all 4 years?
That's another fun story. I actually went to Howard University. I stayed for 1 year, not because it was not a phenomenal school. I think that experience was one of the best experiences of my life. It's still near and dear to my heart. So I did attend and stay for my first year. I did have to transfer back to Texas Tech University for financial reasons. I just did not have the financial and family support that I would have loved to stay at Howard. And so I made the difficult decision to transfer back to Texas Tech, and it ended up working out. But that's one of those things that I wish, if I could do it all over again, I would have loved to. I love to remain there.
You mentioned that it was a great experience, that 1 year in Howard. What would you say is your biggest takeaway relevant to your career today? Is it, how you see different people groups, how you see yourself? What is the biggest takeaway you received from your year at Howard?
Absolutely. Just different groups and just being a lot more culturally responsive. And really, I think it really taught me to be a lot more open-minded. I think just moving and relocating from, Texas to a different city at that age, you're completely independent. You've essentially, what feels like moved across the country, and you meet all of these people from various walks of life from all over the world. And you have all of these conversations and experiences, and it's just life-changing. And so I think just making that decision and doing something so bold at such a young age definitely changed my life.
So you went to Texas Tech. Anything at Texas Tech that triggered, hey, this mental health is a thing? and art is something I should pursue?
Yes, it was just actually my own personal journey at the time. I struggled a little bit with, I was a little defeated having to transfer. I was extremely disappointed. I was kind of going through my first young love kind of breakup situation. It was like a life changing kind of moment. And I was actually honestly experiencing a culture shock. It was a huge difference from Howard and Texas Tech. And so I kind of went through my own, I think I like to call it a seasonal type of depression. And so I started to really realize how important it is to have access to supports. And even some of my childhood stuff kind of started to re-emerge. And so I had this newfound interest in basically getting services for myself, but also how I could be of support to other people in my future career, in that area.
Gotcha. So you've had that trigger experience where, okay, this is something that I need, something that's out there. When did you begin to, go to your counseling office and say, hey, I want to study this field, I want to take this seriously? When did that trigger, and give me the steps that you took to make that happen?
So I made that decision after taking some prerequisite courses, and I actually chose to do my minor in human development and family studies. I kind of felt like that was a broad area to work under, and just to kind of make a decision and see what I wanted to do for the future. And so once I started to really enjoy those classes, and you start to talk more about mental health and counseling services and how so many different groups are underserved, that was kind of the push. And so it was a culmination of literally sitting in these classrooms and having these conversations, and then simultaneously experiencing my own, mental health crisis at the time. And so I changed my major to psychology, changed my coursework. I started to kind of look at, what courses I would end up taking. Is there anything that stood out to me? Anything that I was extremely interested in? And it definitely started to just evolve from just making a decision, essentially, and really taking a look at, the coursework that you're going to take over the next few years, not just in that first year, in that moment. So really, really looking at your future and what that's going to look like.
So you're in college, you've had a personal life experience that said, hey, this mental health thing is a thing. I feel like I can add value in this space, especially serving underserved communities. When you made that transition, were you ever thinking of how much money I would make, how stable this industry is? Were those things clicking in your head, or was it more of, this is exciting me right now and lighting a fire within inside of me?
Yes, it was definitely more of the excitement and lighting the fire. I did not even think twice about what that would look like, unfortunately. I think it is, definitely an important part of making a decision about your career path, but I did not at that point have that guidance. So for me, it was just really important for me to just do something that I was interested in. My logic was, man, I have a couple years left of being on this campus and going to class every day and waking up like I want to feel motivated. I want to feel excited about what I'm learning. And I did not think twice about income until much later.
What was your first experience with somebody telling you what somebody would make who did what you do? Was it your first job offer, or was it, some other students? When did you begin talking about, I need to make a living, and what does that living look like for me?
It was actually at the very end of my undergraduate career, because at that point, with my particular area, you have to kind of start looking towards licensure, where you're going to have your field experience. And so when you're talking through all of these experiences with your advisors, they inform you, hey, you have to pay for supervision, unless you get, a placement where supervision is provided. And so then it started to click, like, oh my gosh, that's an additional expense. I'm about to no longer be a college student. What does that look like? And so that kind of opened the door to, what are, average salaries for just entry level positions? How long will it take me? What is kind of the median income? for this area. And so it was at the very end of my education where that kind of conversation became real for me.
So you came back from Howard. You're in school now, and there's something real that a lot of people are dealing with today. It's really something across America. School costs money. Mm-hmm. Explain your relationship with, okay, filling out your FAFSA, receiving those student loans. What was your idea at the beginning, going to Howard? What was your idea more towards the end? You're about to graduate. Did student loans ever become real to you? Explain your relationship with student loans.
I have a love-hate relationship with student loans. I am very grateful for the opportunity. I think the unfortunate reality for so many people is that without student loans, we probably would not be able to further our education and be in some of the, the fields that we're in. So that's the part of me that is appreciative for the opportunity. And the other part of me at the very end realized how crippling student loans are. In the early stages, filling out the FAFSA, it was kind of one of those, I just want to get out of here. I want to get an education. There's only one other person in my family that had a college degree. So for me, it was, I'll just sign this. Like, it's going to be fine. I'll pay it back. There was not much thought that went into interest rates and how much student loan debt or paying interest while you're in school until, again, the very end, because you start getting those notifications that, all right, you are going to have to pay this back. And now you're looking at how much you're making. Oh my goodness, what does that look like? Can I even make a living and pay this back at the same time? So it definitely changed and evolved initially out of sight, out of mind. Not much thought, not much education, unfortunately. And then at the very end, it was the harsh reality of like, I'm extremely excited about graduating and I have this degree now, but I have this huge cloud of student loan debt that will carry, move on with me for a really long time.
So, okay, so you're getting to the end of your college time, and did going to a master's program ever ring a bell? And what was your decision making about getting a master's versus hopping into a career? What were you thinking?
I think this is probably something that's really important to share with people that want to get into a lot of different areas, but 100% the mental health field, because licensures are required. So for our industry, a master's degree is essential. You truly can't do a lot. You're very limited if you do not pursue a master's degree. And so I knew that was the next step. That was no question. So I had already started that journey at the end of my undergraduate experience. And that was a part of that conversation when we talked about income and supervision costs. That kind of was all under the same umbrella. And so I knew that was necessary. And so I also knew that meant more student loan debt, but I also knew that meant getting further along in my career and having opportunities that I wouldn't have had I not pursued a graduate level degree.
Very good. And where did you decide to go for your graduate level degree?
I went to Southern Methodist University here in Texas, SMU.
And before we go into there, what was your biggest takeaway from Texas Tech? You took away something from Howard, but Texas Tech was a completely different experience, but it triggered you to go into this field. What is your biggest takeaway from Texas Tech?
I think that it actually was really unrelated, I guess I would say, to my academics, but my biggest takeaway was how important it is to build a community for yourself. And the reason why I say that is because I mentioned earlier, it was such a big culture shock. And unfortunately, I did kind of have some of my first experiences with racism, and it was really challenging. And my community, definitely, we all like rallied together, right? And so it was like, okay, we are minorities on this campus, and so we're going to support each other and have each other's back. We're going to make sure we're holding each other accountable and going to class. We're going to make sure that we are passing our coursework and we graduate and we prove people wrong that thought we didn't deserve to be here. And so it kind of turned into this massive family, because we all had this goal of proving people wrong. Everyone had their own experiences, and we got super close to each other's family, and it just kind of turned into just this awesome experience. And so that was the moment where I'm like, wow, having a community is essential in just your own self-care and in building your career and having support.
Wow. Is that community, is that something you continue to replicate in your master's program, and potentially you replicate it now or attempt to have that community to move forward?
Absolutely. I like to say, I kind of call it different seasons of my life. And I've built a community around different seasons. And so I had that undergraduate experience, and then I went on to my master's program and I created a community within that experience. I left that experience and started my professional career, and it just continues to evolve. But absolutely, I've just realized how important connections are. And people phrase it differently. You kind of hear a lot of that. It's who you know. And that's true to a degree. But I like to think that the community, the way I talk about it, is it's more of an emotional connection. And so it's not just, I know this person, I got that job, thank you for the opportunity. It's, hey, I have built this relationship that will probably last a lifetime, and we're going to continue to support each other's businesses or, careers in whatever capacity in the future as well.
Very nice. So you're moving into your master's program. How would you compare the coursework of undergraduate versus master's program, and which one really lit that fire, gave you that passion for your career? How would you compare and contrast the coursework of the undergraduate degree and your master's degree?
I think a lot of people can agree that your undergraduate experience feels more generic. It's kind of like a mandatory to do for some people, maybe not everyone, but definitely in my field, I felt like that because my master's program is what definitely grew me. And it was just obviously more focused in content. And so just even my relationships with my professors and the feedback I got, I felt like it was more relatable. It was more, connected to what I actually do today. And so those classes and those professors actually stand out more to me today, unfortunately, than some of my undergraduate experiences. And not that those weren't great, but I feel like at that, at the graduate level, you're essentially in your field. You're on your way into walking potentially into your very first professional job. And so it was really great, actually. It was one of those experiences that I talk about to my current team members and people that are wanting to pursue this career.
Okay, so you're about to graduate from your master's program. What were your feelings saying, I've spent so many years in school. I'm really about to take this leap, get those hours of supervision. What were your feelings and emotions at that point?
I was a little nervous because I felt like, yes, you're excited. I was in school for so long. Oh my goodness, I'm ready to just be done doing this. But you're also now on your own. There's this level of expectation, like, okay, now you know what to do, so go do it. You have read all these books, you've gone to all these classes, you're ready, go do it. And so there was definitely some fear there. I no longer had, my professors to, access on a consistent basis. And essentially they're required to respond. And yes, I'd built a community of resources, and so I could reach out at any point for guidance, but definitely concerned about my ability to function independently, especially, in a career where people are relying on me to have, quote unquote, the answer. And so some anxiety to kind of get out there and start my career.
So you're about to make the leap. How did you make the decision where to go next? Who did you lean on for that information? What did you if you Google search, what websites? What are some of the things that helped you in your decision to make that leap from graduate school into I'm now a working professional?
I think some of the best advice that I received just throughout my education was just to get as much experience as possible in a variety of areas. And so I, throughout my schoolwork, had participated in a ton of internships and just different placements and asking to observe at different clinics or asking questions about my professors and where they worked and what did they like or dislike about different areas. And what's interesting, and I know I mentioned this earlier, I had this idea that I did not want to work with kids. And I remember I was getting observed during one of my practicum experiences, and my advisor was like, I think you should really reconsider working with children because this is very natural for you. This is a lot more natural than what I've seen you do before. And so I held on to that. It wasn't like a decision I made in that moment, but I remember thinking I really just need to be open. And so that's kind of what I guess prepared me, was being open and having different experiences. And so I was able to kind of say, okay, I'm going to try this avenue because I tried so many things throughout my undergraduate and graduate experience.
Very good. So what did you eventually decide on? What was the first company that you worked for or organization?
Yes, it was a very small nonprofit that provided services to kids with autism. So I took the advice of being open and working with kids. And I actually had another graduate peer of mine who was working at the same clinic. And so she talked about the flexibility of the program and how great it was for students. I think that's something important for students to remember as well. You want some experience in a placement that will still allow you to, be consistent with your academics. And so I started working there and absolutely fell in love with the population. And it actually took me to a different journey where I got an additional licensure to specialize in that.
So this is, a message about building wealth and mental health. What was your starting salary, if you don't mind sharing, and how did you think about that?
So after I was done with all of my licensures and practicum and supervision and all the fun stuff that goes along with it, my starting salary was $55,000 as a licensed professional. And hindsight, I'm like, that is not ideal after all of that education and student loan debt and all that stuff. But at that moment, you're no longer a student, you're no longer paying for supervision, you have your first full-time job or you have benefits. I was ecstatic. Again, I was not yet as well-versed as I am now when it comes to, income and debt to income ratio and all that good stuff. So at the time, I thought it was great. And it's great for someone, but I think now that I can look at, unfortunately, all of the things that had to go into getting there, it really didn't necessarily even itself out.
How did you prepare yourself for those certifications? Were you big on self-study? Did you take a course? How did you get over the hump?
I think the nice thing about a lot of licensures, and I can really, again, only speak to the mental health field, you are required to have supervision from someone who has been in the field and is experienced for a while. So the nice thing is that you're able to essentially ride the coattails of someone else who's licensed. And so that was the biggest preparation. It was my clinical supervisor, who I still speak to this day, just giving lots of support and guidance about their experience, what to do, what not to do, major concerns in the field, things to consider. So I definitely had consistent support. I met with my supervisor, as required every week across both licensures. And so, yes, it was some self-study that kind of goes along with it, but I think the biggest support was having a dedicated supervisor to help walk you through that process.
Okay. So let's walk through your career trajectory. So after you have your license, you're working, you're starting off with the, $50,000+ job. What were the steps that you took to get into the seat you are in today?
Experience. I didn't limit myself even after licensure. I think sometimes that's what happens. You know, you kind of get into your profession and you're like, okay, I've arrived. This is it. And I think sometimes that can, you know, be a detriment to your development. And so it was, you know, I still volunteered my time. I still, you know, joined professional organizations. I still met with my clinical supervisor. I would actually go back to my internship site and speak to students about, you know, where I was working and what I was doing. And they had, you know, great questions, or even sometimes they would teach me things about their experience. And so I think there's this ongoing goal of just making sure that I continue to invest in myself. And that definitely gives me leverage in, you know, in terms of advancing in my career and not kind of plateauing so early.
Understand. Now, what are you in a current situation where you have supervisor experience, and how would you compare being just an individual contributor in the organization versus now you're responsible for the performance of who you were just a couple years ago?
Mm-hmm. In my current role, I actually do both. So I'm an independent practitioner. So I provide direct therapeutic and behavioral support. So I have my own patient caseload. So I'm fully independent in that capacity, but I also oversee other service lines. And so I do have a team that I oversee and supervise and provide support for. And I will say that that experience in being a people leader has taught me more than probably what I learned in school. It is probably one of the most challenging experiences. People are complex. They come with their own set of concerns and challenges and limitations and background, and you are now the person with the answers. And so you are trying to be the person with the answers while also providing support, having empathy and compassion, but also giving corrective feedback and all of the fun things that go with it. So that was probably one of my more challenging experiences, but probably also the most rewarding.
So what are so we have the technical skills, which is, you know, learning how to provide therapy, sitting down across from the patient. But there's also a little bit of they're still technical, but hard side, the technology. What are some of the tech tools that you use in your job that you really love, and also what you encourage young individuals who want to become or have the role that you have get up to speed on? What is the technology that you love today?
I mean, we're just in a different place with technology. And so I think it's important for everyone to just have the basic skill sets of your just like email, you know, Word, Excel, kind of just your essentials, because, you know, I think you're going to have to utilize that skill set in any industry. I think I might be a little spoiled. Working in a hospital system, you naturally default to their technology. But what I love about it is it's a very comprehensive system. So we have a wide variety of providers, but we all use the same kind of platform, and everyone just kind of performs in their capacity. So that is probably my favorite because I have access to the full picture, if that makes sense in the mental health world. So for example, an individual practitioner who's private practice, they may have their traditional scheduling and note platform and their way of doing things. When you start to pull in other services, like let's say psychiatry, or you're talking to the school or something like that, you know, you're having to pull in all of these external documents to get the full picture. And so, you know, I think it's important for people to be open to having a system that can function across different disciplines.
Awesome. That makes sense. So now you're in your career, you're seeing some levels of different success, but, you know, we still have to think about, okay, what about our financial well-being? What are some of the tools that you have used in the past? Let's talk about, you know, maybe budgeting, making sure that you are meeting your cash flow needs so that you can not only practice, but also live somewhat of a lifestyle.
Absolutely. I think the start of that was extremely helpful for me and eye-opening was having access to a financial advisor. Whatever that looks like. For some people, they're able to do that through their employer. For some people, they're able to find access to those services independently. But that was actually the first time I had an in-depth conversation about my relationship with spending, which I had never talked about it in that way. And so that was so important. I actually was able to identify some of my emotional responding to different things. And then that's how I started to change habits, spending money in areas that really weren't necessary, saving more, focusing more on retirement. And so I encourage people to essentially have access to an expert in that area. You can't possibly know every single thing about everything. And so it's really important to be open and have, access to those resources. And that was life-changing, and also utilizing the resources through my employer that are free of charge. And so, having that quick conversation with the retirement expert, or reaching out to HR and asking about, how to maybe create an additional savings directly from your paycheck. So just those small things, you pay into these services and often we don't use them or take advantage of them. And so that has been really helpful for me.
So you mentioned what the employer provides as far as retirement. How did you approach contributing into your retirement account? Did you have anybody kind of guide you, say, hey, a coworker say, this is what I've done, this is what I recommend you do? Did your company automatically allowed you to contribute to your account? How did you approach retirement savings with your employer?
Yes, and so my employer kind of gave me that introductory conversation just about what they offer. And I had so many colleagues and even just some family that I talked to that kind of raved about, oh my gosh, your company matches at 100%, take advantage of that, right? And really the strategy for participating in my retirement came from my financial advisor. So having a more aggressive strategy so that I could retire early if I wanted to, and contributing more since I do have a company that matches at 100, and remaining with the organization until I was fully vested. So yeah, just having those resources and having someone that, again, has that expertise, because I'm definitely one of those people, if it's not interesting, it's difficult for me to sit and read a book on retirement and investing. And so it was nice to have someone to have a conversation with that could just put it in, just day-to-day terms, like do this and this is why. And that definitely helped me to have a more aggressive strategy.
What is next for you? So you're sitting at your job now in a hospital setting. You have supervisory responsibilities. Where do you see your career going next? Let's say in the next 10 years, and let's say in the future, where do you want to end up?
That's a good question. I think my current perspective is definitely I'm open to thinking outside of the box in terms of like thinking of other, even career paths that will allow, multiple streams of income where I can still basically be of service to others. That's really important to me. I jokingly tell my friends and family, I can't get beat up for the rest of my life. I work with little kids that sometimes have a challenge, managing their emotions. And so I do recognize that I will grow old one day. And so just thinking about creating opportunities to transition into something different that may be a little bit easier on my body, easier on my mind. And so I'm dabbling in other areas, just thinking about what that may look like for me. I work for an awesome organization, so I do have the opportunity to grow within my company. That was something that I looked for. But I also am looking outside of that and being open to other opportunities. So currently it's just on my mind. But I am thinking about what that will look like for my future. But in terms of my current place, I think it's okay to intermittently be comfortable. And I am in a comfortable, very happy place, and we'll see what's next.
Awesome. Now, this is a podcast about success, and success means different things to different people. What does success look like to you? How would you define success in your life?
Well, now that I know that money makes a difference too, that's included. But honestly, for me, it is fulfillment. I share this with people that I mentor in my team. You spend so much time, and so many days and hours of your life engaging in your craft, whatever that is. And so I think it's really important to be fulfilled. It's life changing to be doing something that you truly don't enjoy. So for me, success is peace of mind in my career path. And it's fulfillment. Did I walk away and feel like I served a purpose and I felt good about what I did? And I do on a daily basis. And so that is success. I am happy about what I do every day.
All right. And for the last question, what is the best advice you can give somebody? Let's say they're on college campus and they're thinking about copying your profession or having something similar, maybe serving a different population. What is the best advice you can give for that?
Two of these are things that people told me that I've held on to, and one of them is just my own. So I'll kind of give my top advice for anyone who are thinking about this or just young and trying to figure it out. For one, never stop investing in yourself. I don't care like what part of your career stage in your life you're in. I think it's so important to never stop investing in yourself. Pay yourself first. My dad used to always say that. I think that's important, and you can talk to a financial advisor for more details on that one. And I think finally for me, it's just thinking beyond today. I think it's important to have a healthy relationship with the present and the future. I think you can obviously kind of get stuck on one or the other, but it's important to ebb and flow. So today is great, but tomorrow comes. So just thinking beyond this moment, I think helps.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for spending time here today, explaining your career path. I'm sure if an individual is interested in your area, that they would be able to grab a nugget from what you've explained and use that to apply towards their life. So I would like to thank you for your time today.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Take care. This is a production of RSA Deasil Advisors, a wealth management firm servicing the community of licensed professional counselors, psychologists, and psychiatrists. If you are in need of financial guidance, we would be happy to serve you.